Have you ever looked at your child and wondered if they're really yours? This is the story of how my mother-in-law switched my newborn baby in the hospital nursery 8 years ago, how we unknowingly raised another family's child, how a simple DNA test revealed the unthinkable, and how the truth led to criminal charges custody battles and two families forever changed. My name is Emily. I'm 32 years old. 8 years ago, I gave birth to my first child. My husband, Mark, and I were thrilled, first-time parents, young and in love, ready to start our family. The delivery was traumatic: 22 hours of induced labor, failed epidural, emergency C-section under general anesthesia. I woke up in recovery, barely able to keep my eyes open. Mark was there, holding my hand, tears streaming down his face. "It's a boy," he whispered. "He's perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes. Healthy." I smiled, too exhausted to feel anything but relief. Our families crowded the waiting room, but one person pushed to the front of the line. Karen, my mother-in-law, Mark's mom, the woman who had strong opinions about everything, who believed she knew best about all things parenting. She burst into my recovery room wearing scrubs she'd somehow charmed from a nurse, demanded to hold her grandson first. The nurse hesitated. "Mom gets first hold," Karen insisted. "I'm his grandmother. I raised 3 boys. I know what I'm doing." The nurse relented, handed the baby to Karen. Karen cradled him close, cooing softly, whispering promises. "He has the Whitmore nose," she announced proudly. "Just like his father and grandfather. Strong family genes." I was too drugged to notice how tightly she held him, how possessively her eyes lingered on his face, how she seemed unwilling to give him back when the nurse finally insisted. The next 48 hours passed in a morphine haze, learning to latch, dealing with postpartum bleeding, sleepless nights with a crying newborn in the hospital bassinet beside my bed. Karen visited every allowed hour, snapping photos for the family group chat, positioning herself as the star of every picture, baby on her lap, her arm draped protectively around him. She brought monogrammed blankets with the Whitmore family crest, insisted on the first official family portrait, her in the center naturally, Mark and I on either side, the baby in her arms. We were discharged after 3 days, buckled Ethan into his car seat, drove home to our modest starter house. Karen followed in her luxury SUV, stocked our freezer with casseroles, rearranged the nursery to her specifications, critiqued my swaddling technique. "You're doing it wrong," she'd say, taking the baby from my arms. "Let me show you how we did it in my generation." Ethan was a dream baby, slept through the night at 6 weeks, rolled over at 3 months, said his first word "Dada" at 9 months. Karen beamed with pride every milestone. Of course he's advanced. Whitmores have always been exceptional children. It's in the bloodline. Mark and I exchanged glances but said nothing. We were grateful for her help, grateful to have supportive family nearby. Life settled into a joyful routine: playdates and preschool, soccer practices and birthday parties. Ethan thrived. Straight A student by 1st grade, soccer team captain, funny kind sensitive, everything a parent could hope for. 8 years flew by in a blur of little league games and school concerts, until one random Saturday afternoon, Mark and I were browsing online, saw an ad for those Ancestry DNA Kits, the ones that tell you your ethnic heritage, what percentage Irish or German or Scandinavian you are. "Let's do it," Mark said. "Could be fun. See what our family background really is." We ordered 3 kits, one for me, one for Mark, one for Ethan, just for fun. A family bonding project. The kits arrived 2 days later. We did the cheek swabs together at the kitchen table. Ethan thought it was hilarious. A science experiment. Mailed them off. Forgot about it. 2 weeks later, an email notification. "Results ready." I clicked the link, logged into my account, opened my results first. 47% English, 42% Irish, 11% Scandinavian. Made perfect sense based on my family tree. Mark's results next: 52% English, 30% German, 18% Scottish, textbook Whitmore heritage, then Ethan's. I stared at the screen. My stomach dropped. The numbers didn't make sense. 62% Italian, 24% Spanish, 14% North African, 0 overlap with Mark's results, 0 overlap with mine. I refreshed the page, cleared my browser, logged out and back in. Same results. Mark, I called out. Come look at this. He walked over, glanced at the screen, laughed. Lab error. Has to be. These companies mix up samples all the time. But I couldn't shake the feeling, couldn't stop staring at Ethan, his olive complexion, his dark, curly hair, the features that looked nothing like either of us. That night, I couldn't sleep. Googled switched babies at hospital. Hospital baby mix-ups. How often does it happen? Rare, but not impossible. About 1 in 8 million births, usually caught within hours, sometimes not caught for years, decades. The next morning, I ordered a clinical paternity test, not the Ancestry kind. A real forensic-grade test from a lab. Sent it priority overnight. Results came back 3 days later. Mark was not Ethan's biological father. Probability of paternity 0.3%. I was not Ethan's biological mother. Maternal match less than 1%. Ethan was not our son. Biologically, we were raising someone else's child. I showed Mark the results. He went pale, denied it, said I was being paranoid. That DNA doesn't define family, that Ethan was our son, no matter what some test said. But I needed answers. Needed to know how this happened, where our biological child was, who had him. I hired a private investigator, paid cash. No paper trail. Gave him everything. Hospital records, birth certificate, the DNA results. He called me a week later. Emily, you need to sit down. What did you find? Your mother-in-law. Karen. She was in the hospital nursery for 47 minutes. Alone. During the 2:17 a.m. shift change. What? Security footage. Hospital kept it archived. I subpoenaed it. Can I see it? He sent me the file. Grainy black and white video. Time stamped February 14th, 2:17 a.m. The nursery. Dimly lit. 2 bassinets side by side. Left bassinet. Light-skinned baby. Blonde tufts of hair. Wristband reads Ethan James Whitmore. Right bassinet. Olive-skinned baby. Dark curls. Wristband reads Isabella Marie Rossi. Karen enters the frame. Looks around. No nurses visible. Shift change chaos. She bends over both bassinets, removes the wristbands, switches them. Ethan's bracelet on Isabella. Isabella's bracelet on Ethan. She picks up Isabella, now wearing Ethan's bracelet. Walks out of frame. Leaves Ethan behind in Isabella's bassinet. 2 minutes later, a nurse enters. Picks up Ethan thinking he's Isabella Rossi. Wheels him to a different recovery room. I watched the video 12 times. Threw up. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't process what I was seeing. My mother-in-law had switched our babies. Deliberately. Knowingly. She stole our biological son. Gave us someone else's daughter. Let us raise Isabella for 8 years thinking she was Ethan. Why? Why would she do this? I called the police immediately. Filed a report. Kidnapping. Child endangerment. Identity theft. Detectives moved fast. Verified the DNA through the state forensics lab. Confirmed the switch. Tracked down the Rossi family. Maria and Carlos. Undocumented restaurant workers living in a small apartment across town. They'd been raising our biological son as Luca Rossi, never suspecting he wasn't theirs. Police showed them the footage, the DNA proof. Maria collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably. Their daughter, their Isabella. Raised by strangers for 8 years. Carlos sat in silence, fury and grief warring across his face. Detectives brought Karen in for questioning. She showed up with a lawyer, denied everything, called it a deepfake video, a conspiracy, accused me of being unstable. But under 48 hours of interrogation, she cracked. Yes, I did it. But I did it for my family. Her confession was recorded, played in court months later. She'd seen the Rossi couple in the hospital waiting room, heard them speaking Spanish, saw their worn clothes, decided they were poor immigrants, undeserving of a perfect baby boy. She wanted Mark to have a son who looked like him, a biological-looking heir to carry on the Whitmore name, to have the family resemblance. Isabella was a girl anyway, she said. They were poor. It was a win-win. Everyone got what they needed. Baby Ethan, our biological son, went home with the Rossis as Luca. Dark hair, olive skin. They never questioned he was theirs. Isabella came home with us as Ethan. We never questioned she was ours. Karen thought she was playing God, rearranging fates, giving everyone a better outcome. She was wrong. The fallout was catastrophic. Karen was charged with first-degree kidnapping, child endangerment, medical fraud, 25 years maximum sentence. Custody battle ensued. Mark and I fought for both children. Maria and Carlos fought for Luca. The courts had to decide where each child belonged. Mark defended his mother ferociously, blamed me for destroying our family, filed for divorce, sued for full custody of Isabella. I countersued, documented everything, every lie, every manipulation, every piece of evidence. The custody hearing lasted 6 months, the most painful 6 months of my life. Karen pled guilty, got 8 years in state prison, 15 years probation, lifetime ban from contact with any minor children. Mark was ruled emotionally compromised, too loyal to his criminal mother, lost primary custody of Isabella. Isabella was placed with my parents temporarily, while the courts decided final arrangements. Luca stayed with his biological parents, Maria and Carlos, with generous visitation rights for me. He calls me bonus mom. Over time, we worked it out. Maria and Carlos are model co-parents. We have monthly dinners together, joint holidays, 2 families raising 2 switched children. Ethan/Luca knows his story, knows he was switched, has 2 loving families now instead of 1. Isabella lives with me, knows her story, sees Maria and Carlos regularly, knows her biological parents. Mark got sober eventually. AA meetings, therapy, has supervised weekly visits with Isabella, cut all contact with Karen. I rebuilt my life from the ashes, therapy, support groups for parents of switched babies, wrote a book about our experience, became an advocate. My story led to federal legislation, the Baby Identity Protection Act, mandatory DNA testing at birth in high-risk hospitals, RFID chips in baby ID bracelets, 24-hour nursery surveillance. No other family should go through what we did. 8 years later, Ethan and Isabella are 10, thriving, loved by 2 families each, adjusted to their complex reality through years of therapy. Karen is still in prison, writes delusional letters claiming she acted out of love. There was no love in what she did, only entitlement, only the belief that she had the right to decide whose child deserved which family. Was it worth it? Losing my marriage, my home, 8 years of my life raising someone else's child while my biological child grew up across town? Yes, because Ethan knows his heritage now. Isabella knows hers. No other unsuspecting mother is raising a stranger's baby. Truth cost me everything, but truth was the only thing worth having. Family is forged through choice, through love, not chromosomes alone, but truth must be the foundation. Without truth, there's nothing but lies. Thanks for listening to my story. Subscribe if this resonated. Comment your own MIL nightmare stories. See you in the next episode. What I didn't tell you yet is what happened in the weeks and months after that security footage reveal. Because Karen's betrayal didn't just destroy one moment. It destroyed 8 years of memories, 8 years of believing in a lie. The day after I saw the security footage, I called Mark at work, told him to come home immediately. This wasn't a conversation for the phone. He walked in the door 30 minutes later, face pale. What's wrong? Did something happen to Ethan? Sit down, I said. You need to see something. I showed him the video, explained what the private investigator found, the DNA tests, the hospital records, all of it. Mark watched in silence. His face went from confusion to disbelief to rage to grief in the span of 5 minutes. That's not possible, he finally said. My mother wouldn't. She couldn't. It's time-stamped security footage, Mark, from the hospital. That's her. That's our nursery. That's what she did. He watched it again, and again, 12 times. Same as me, looking for any explanation that wasn't the obvious one. There wasn't one. Finally, he looked at me, eyes red. What do? We call the police. We report this. We find out where our biological son is, and we figure out what happens next. Mark nodded, numb, broken. Within hours, the police had detectives assigned. They verified everything, confirmed the DNA results through the state lab, tracked down the Rossi family through birth records. Maria and Carlos Rossi, immigrants from Naples, working 2 jobs each, living in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment, raising their son Luca, 8 years old, dark curly hair, olive skin, their pride and joy. Except Luca was really Ethan, our biological son, stolen by Karen and given to them in Isabella's place. The police showed up at their apartment on a Thursday evening, explained the situation, showed them the footage, the DNA tests. Maria fainted. Carlos caught her, held her while she sobbed. Their daughter, their Isabella, had been with us for 8 years, calling me mom, calling Mark dad. We met them 2 days later. Neutral location, police supervision, social workers present. Maria couldn't stop crying. I'm so sorry. We didn't know. We never suspected. I know I told her. This isn't your fault. You're victims too. We talked for hours, compared photos. Ethan at 6 months, Luca at 6 months. Identical. How had we never noticed? Because we had no reason to question it. Babies look like babies. Kids grow into their features. We trusted the hospital, trusted the system, trusted Karen. That trust was misplaced. The custody situation became a nightmare. The court appointed a guardian ad litem, someone to represent the children's best interests. Because how do you decide where an 8-year-old belongs? With the family they've known their entire life, or with their biological family? Strangers. Ethan/Luca had been raised by the Rossis, spoke fluent Spanish and English, loved soccer and his nana's cooking, called Maria and Carlos mom and dad. Isabella/Ethan had been raised by us, went to private school, played piano, called me mom and Mark dad. The courts couldn't just swap them back. That would traumatize both children, uproot their entire lives. So they ordered a transition period, supervised visits, family therapy, slowly introducing each child to their biological family. Those first visits were heartbreaking. Luca meeting us, his biological parents, looking at us like strangers, because we were strangers. Isabella meeting Maria and Carlos, her biological parents, confused, scared. Why was this happening? Why couldn't things stay the same? Mark and I explained as gently as we could that Karen had made a terrible mistake, that we loved her no matter what, that she would always be our daughter in every way that mattered. But the law cared about biology, and the courts had to decide. During this time, Karen was awaiting trial, out on bail, living with Mark's brother, still insisting she'd done nothing wrong. She actually tried to visit Ethan during this period, showed up at our house unannounced. I have a right to see my grandson, she shouted through the door. I called the police. She was removed, restraining order filed, no contact with either child. Her trial began 6 months later. High-profile case, media coverage, the grandmother who switched babies. The prosecutor laid out the timeline, showed the security footage, played Karen's confession. Her defense attorney tried to argue diminished capacity, that she'd been overcome with grandmother hormones, that she hadn't been thinking clearly. The jury didn't buy it. 47 minutes in the nursery, deliberately switching wristbands. That's premeditation. That's kidnapping. Guilty on all counts. 8 years in state prison, 15 years probation after release, registered as a child offender, lifetime ban from contact with minors. Karen sobbed as the sentence was read. I was trying to help my family. I was trying to give my son the child he deserved. The judge was unmoved. You decided you had the right to play God with 2 families' lives, with 2 innocent children. You will serve every day of this sentence. She was led out in handcuffs. I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No vindication. Just exhaustion. Mark filed for divorce 3 weeks later. Blamed me for turning his mother in, for destroying his family, for refusing to let it go. I didn't fight it. Our marriage was over the moment that security footage played. The custody battle over Isabella dragged on for another year. Mark wanted full custody, said I was unstable, that I'd traumatized everyone by reporting Karen. I countersued, presented evidence of Mark's enabling, his defense of his criminal mother, his refusal to accept reality. The courts sided with me, primary custody of Isabella. Mark got supervised visitation. He'd proven he couldn't be trusted to protect his children from his mother. Meanwhile, Luca stayed with the Rossis. They were granted full custody. I was granted generous visitation as the biological mother. It took 2 more years before things stabilized, before the kids adjusted, before we figured out how to co-parent across 2 families. Maria and Carlos turned out to be incredible people. Kind, patient, understanding. They never blamed us. Never tried to keep Luca from me. We had dinner together once a month, all of us, both kids, both families, blended and complicated but functional. Luca knows his story now, knows he was switched, knows he has 2 families, 2 sets of parents who love him. He calls me Emily Mom, calls Maria Mom. Seems to have made peace with it through therapy. Isabella knows her story too, knows she has biological parents in Maria and Carlos. Knows she was switched, calls me Mom, calls Maria and Carlos by their first names but hugs them when we visit. 2 kids, 2 families, one nightmare that somehow we're all surviving. Mark eventually got sober, started therapy, made amends, has a good relationship with Isabella now. Supervised visits became unsupervised. He's part of her life, just not the center anymore. Karen writes letters from prison. Long, rambling letters about how she was just trying to help, how we're all overreacting, how she deserves forgiveness. I don't respond. Neither does Mark. Her letters go into a file folder, evidence if we ever need it. My advocacy work grew from this. I testified before Congress, helped draft the Baby Identity Protection Act, mandatory DNA testing, RFID tracking, biometric verification, security protocols. It passed, signed into law 2 years after Karen's conviction. Now, no hospital can have a repeat of what happened to us. I wrote a book about our experience, The Baby Switch, published to mixed reviews. Some people thought I was exploiting my trauma. Others thanked me for raising awareness. Did a TED Talk, 2 million views, hundreds of comments from other switched baby families, more common than anyone wants to admit. Ethan and Isabella are 10 now, happy, healthy, loved. They have twice the family most kids have. 2 moms, 2 dads, 2 sets of grandparents who aren't criminals. Was it worth it? 8 years raising someone else's child. 8 years my biological son called someone else mom. Marriage ended. Life destroyed. Yes, because the alternative was living a lie forever, never knowing, never questioning. Raising Isabella to adulthood, never knowing her real heritage. Luca, never knowing his. Truth mattered more than comfort. Justice mattered more than family loyalty. Karen robbed us of 8 years, robbed Maria and Carlos of 8 years, robbed both kids of their biological families from birth. But she didn't win. Because we found out, we fought back, we demanded justice, and we built something new from the ashes. 2 families, 2 kids, 1 truth. It's messy and complicated and sometimes heartbreaking, but it's real, and real is all that matters. If you're listening to this and you have doubts about your child, get the DNA test. Better to know than to wonder. Better to face the truth than live a comfortable lie. And if your mother-in-law is boundary-stomping, controlling, possessive, set those boundaries now, before she does something unforgivable. Thanks for listening to the whole story, all the ugly parts, all the complicated aftermath. Subscribe for more. Comment your MIL horror stories. Share if this resonated. See you next time. 4 years after the trial, something unexpected happened. Something that made me question everything I thought I knew about forgiveness and moving forward. I got a letter in the mail. Not from Karen this time. From Isabella, my daughter, 10 years old, writing in her careful elementary school handwriting. Dear Mom, I've been thinking a lot about Grandma Karen, about what she did. I know it was bad. I know she hurt people, but I miss her sometimes. Is that okay? I sat at the kitchen table staring at that letter for an hour. Isabella barely remembered Karen. She'd been 6 when Karen was arrested. Most of her memories were from photos and stories. But she remembered someone who baked cookies and sang lullabies. Someone who made her feel special. She didn't remember the monster. She remembered the grandmother. I called my therapist, scheduled an emergency session. How do I handle this? Do I let my daughter have contact with the woman who stole her, who ruined everything? My therapist asked a better question. What's best for Isabella? Not for you, not for justice. For her. I didn't know. That weekend, I sat Isabella down, asked her what she remembered about Grandma Karen. She remembered birthday parties, Christmas mornings, being told she was special and loved, normal grandparent things. I explained as gently as I could what Karen had really done, how she'd switched babies, how we'd almost never known, how Luca had almost grown up never knowing his real family. Isabella listened quietly, then asked, "But why did she do it?" I told her the truth. Because she thought she knew better than everyone else. Because she thought she had the right to decide who deserved which baby. Because she was wrong. Does she know she was wrong now? Isabella asked. I don't know. I don't think so. Can I write to her? Just once. To ask her myself. I thought about it for 3 days. Consulted with my lawyer, with Maria and Carlos, with Mark. Everyone had opinions. Mark said absolutely not. Maria said it's Isabella's choice. My lawyer said legally there's no contact order, but Isabella isn't bound by it as the victim. I let Isabella write one letter. I read it first, made sure it wasn't going to hurt her emotionally. Dear Grandma Karen, I'm Isabella. I'm 10 now. I don't really remember you, but Mom tells me stories. I want to know why you switched me and Luca. Did you think you were helping? Did you know it was wrong? Do you wish you could take it back? Love, Isabella. Karen's response came 3 weeks later, 6 pages handwritten. I read it first. Decided whether Isabella should see it. It was delusional, full of justifications, claiming she'd been protecting me from the burden of raising a dark-skinned child in a racist world, claiming the Rossis were better suited to raise Luca because they were Italian like him, claiming she'd been selfless and wise. I didn't show it to Isabella. Told her Grandma Karen had written back but wasn't ready to take responsibility yet. Isabella nodded, seemed satisfied, never asked again. That exchange taught me something. Kids are resilient in ways adults aren't. Isabella didn't need Karen to be a monster. She just needed to understand what happened and why. Once she had that, she moved on. Meanwhile, Luca was thriving with the Rossis, bilingual, top of his class, star soccer player. He knew his story, knew he'd been switched, knew he had 2 families. He called me on my birthday that year. Video call. Sang happy birthday in English and Spanish. Told me he loved me. Asked when our next dinner was. I ugly cried for an hour after that call, because despite everything, despite Karen's betrayal, my son knew me, loved me, claimed me as family. Maria and Carlos made that possible. They could have closed ranks, could have told Luca I was a stranger, could have painted me as the villain who tried to take him away. They didn't. They told him the truth age-appropriately. Let him have a relationship with me, encouraged him to love both families. That's the kind of people they are. The kind of grace I'm not sure I could have shown in their position. Mark remarried 2 years after our divorce. A kind woman named Sarah. No kids of her own. Patient with Isabella. Respectful of boundaries. I liked her. We co-parented well. Mark apologized eventually. For defending Karen. For blaming me. For refusing to see the truth. Said therapy had opened his eyes to a lifetime of manipulation. I forgave him. Not for him. For me. Carrying that anger was exhausting. The Baby Identity Protection Act went into effect nationwide. Mandatory DNA testing at all births. Hospitals required to take footprints photographs and DNA samples before babies leave the nursery. RFID chips in all baby bracelets synced to mother's bracelet. Can't be removed or switched without triggering alarms. No future mother would go through what I did. No future grandmother could do what Karen did. The system was fixed. I testified at 3 more state legislative hearings. Helped pass similar laws in states that hadn't adopted the federal version. became the face of baby switch prevention. Some people criticized me, said I was profiting off trauma, that I should move on, let it go, focus on my life instead of reliving the nightmare. They didn't understand. This was moving on, turning trauma into purpose, making sure no other family suffered what we had. Ethan and Luca turned 11, started middle school. We had a joint birthday party. Both families, both kids, pizza and cake and chaos. It was beautiful. Weird, but beautiful. At one point, I looked around the room. Maria laughing with my parents, Carlos teaching Isabella a card trick, Mark and Sarah chatting with Luca, two switched kids happy and loved. Karen had tried to destroy this, tried to play God, tried to decide which child belonged with which family. She'd failed, because love isn't about biology. It's about choice. It's about showing up. It's about honesty and respect and letting kids know their truth. We'd all chosen each other, chosen to be family despite the betrayal, chosen to put the kids first, chosen grace over bitterness. That was our revenge on Karen. Not her prison sentence, not her ruined reputation. Our revenge was building something beautiful out of her ugliness. She sits in prison writing delusional letters. We live full lives. We co-parent. We celebrate birthdays and holidays together. We're proof that family is what you make it. The truth set us free. The truth destroyed the lie Karen had built. And in that destruction, we found something real. So here's my message to anyone dealing with a boundary-stomping, controlling, narcissistic family member. Set the boundaries. Enforce them. Don't let family loyalty blind you to abuse. And if you discover your life is built on a lie, no matter how old that lie is, tell the truth. Face the consequences. Rebuild on a foundation of honesty. It will hurt. It will cost you, but it will also free you. Truth always wins in the end. Always. Thanks for listening to my entire story, the good, the bad, and the complicated. Subscribe for more. Share if it helped. Comment your own stories of finding truth in family lies. See you next time.